what do we get? I'm going to start the interview here, Ray. And and then I'll ask you some questions about, so I know you put some questions here. What's the best way to start? I'll just let you tell your backstory. How's that sound? Okay.
I actually was going to suggest that because it'll help give a little bit of color, I think, to how we arrived at the moment when we decided to actually pursue this idea and this project.
Okay.
So if that's all right.
Yeah.
I'll sign off so you guys can have one-on-one so it doesn't mess up your interview one-on-one with each other.
Oh, okay. That's fine. That's fine, Mike.
Just
or
so
you can listen if you want. You can just turn off your screen, or I don't know, whatever. That's fine.
That sounds good. I just don't want to mess it up. Okay.
Well, yeah, your screen's kind of blurry anyway, but that's okay. Okay, cool. Okay.
So I mean,
So
go ahead. Sorry.
So the audience is entrepreneurial podiatrists, basically doctors that are entrepreneurs, kind of looking to, help their patients, things that would, increase revenue, make their life easier, things like that. They like technology. There's about 400 people on my list, so there's not a ton, but it's pretty tight niche. Okay,
interesting. No, then that's helpful, and I appreciate that. And so I'll start kind of a ways back because I promise it'll all, contextually make sense. Why maybe providing some of this background to get to the point, like I said, where the idea kind of coalesced, if you will. So okay. My background, as Mike told you, is legal.
Let me just start the interview here. Ray Rodriguez. Okay. Hello and welcome to Podiatry Practice Mastery. My name is Don Pelto, and I have Mr. Ray Rodriguez here, and we're going to be talking about kind of your background as an entrepreneur and some of the things you're working on. Welcome, Ray.
Thank you very much, Dr. Pelto, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here. Thank you very much to your audience members. And again, very excited to be here, so thank you. Yeah. And with that, if it's okay, I'll go ahead and kind of jump into it.
Tell me your background. Yeah, tell me what you've been working on and your story.
Yeah, so I come from a legal background into this. Prior to jumping into the healthcare, what I'll call software space, I was a litigator in Texas, attended the University of Texas School of Law, graduated almost 10 years ago now, and litigated series of things everywhere from the First Amendment with the Catholic Church and the Church of Scientology to trademark infringement against Taylor Swift, sued the city of Dallas over free speech and civil rights violations against the homeless. So I was fortunate to have a very wide array of exposure in that arena. And then I also did some business consulting and some business litigation and kind of business formation and, transactions work as well. So I came to know a number of businesses, and one of the businesses that I was able to help kind of put together, and I think you mentioned you saw this on the website when you Googled me, and that is Referral Logics, right? And that's what drew me into the healthcare space for the very first time. That was in October of 2020. October of 2020. I had just taken the California State Bar and, was feeling pretty down and miserable. And I got a call from a former client, the folks over at Referral Logics, and they offered me a position, and they just made me an offer I couldn't refuse to come over and engage in business development with them at the Referral Logics, with Referral Logics. As I think is now on the website, it may have been updated. I think now, today I'm CEO of that company. But in the process of doing that is where where this Medsidy opportunity came up and, presented itself. And it's something that, I worked on as a side project, if you will, that, through this, but it was something that really some of the lessons, learned through being exposed in the Referral Logic space to these providers that kind of drove this. And so, like I said, background's, a little bit in depth here, but for me, when I was out there selling Referral Logics, which is a referral management platform, I learned a lot about the physician space that I didn't previously know. And one of the biggest lessons, I think, for me, the takeaway was, you know, from the outside looking in, and I may be entirely wrong about this, Dr. Pelto, but from the outside looking in, physicians have lost a lot of autonomy and control over their practices to larger either private equity or through insurance contracts, or just being largely beholden to Medicare or Medicaid services, whatever the case may be. A lot of physicians, within their practice, I got the sense, felt somewhat constrained, or just not really in a position where they could maybe be as autonomous as maybe they would have liked, right? And met with a lot of physicians that were part of either larger corporate groups, or their group had just been acquired by private equity. And so that kind of stemmed this idea, because to me, I think it's really important seeing that, right, coming from the outside looking in. I'm going, man, that's the most important person in this entire industry, right? The provider. Without them, none of this is possible, right? And so if they're feeling taxed, if they're feeling overwhelmed, if nothing is, being geared towards them to help them, then we're at a big risk, right? As the American people. I mean, we get something wrong in law, it normally costs people money, and that's a bummer, right? Obviously, we don't want to do that. That's not something we're hopeful of. But you get something wrong in medicine, and there's a much more severe consequence that sometimes can't be reversed, right? And so for me, going through that experience and kind of seeing that and being exposed into that market for the first time, it made me really, somewhat, like, I was, just to put it simply, compassionate for the provider, going, hey, this isn't going to work. Like, how do we expect this to work going forward, continually? And to me, that, that's a big problem. And it's something that, there's a lot of things that get a lot of attention in the healthcare space, right? Cost, patient access, all these things. But I think sometimes providers get lost in that shuffle, right? And so again, entrepreneurial spirit, kind of came into business and was doing some software stuff, got exposed to a few players. This opportunity came to my door, and kind of with the folks that I'd met and knew, was able to put, something together that went from an idea to an actual business, that, hopefully will do what I was just describing, which is empower physicians a little bit.
So talk a little bit more about it so people can understand kind of what it is.
Yeah, so the Medsidy project is designed around a simple concept. It's a very simple concept. So Dr. Pelto, can I ask you a question? Are you familiar, or do you know at all how much money was spent on trying to get your attention or any other doctor's attention by business, be it pharmaceutical, device manufacturers, or anything else?
How much do they spend? They probably spend a lot of money, because it's very hard to get a hold of me.
A lot of money. Glass Canopy estimates that it's about $450 billion annually, right? Trying to get attention from you and your listeners, right? Of that, approximately 27 billion is digital marketing alone. So the reason I ask is that, it's obviously, as you can tell, it's a very significant number. But more importantly, Dr. Pelto, how much of that money did you get or receive last year?
I don't think they can kick back any of that. They might bring in some donuts or some lunches, but that's about it. Maybe a cup here or there.
Right. And so, and that's sort of the traditional view of things, and the way we've kind of always looked, and kind of thought about things, right? And so, of course, with my legal background, I'm always, I'm looking at the law and, thinking through things, and that's just my background. And so, like I said, I'm a litigator, right? And for my regulatory, stuff, I always go to a guy who I'll shamelessly plug here, Michael Schultz, out of New Orleans, Scholes and Sullivan Stolier. They're great law firm regulatory guys. Anybody's, looking. But they, they provide my regulatory guidance. And the reason I bring it up is because, you bring up a good point, right? Well, hey, can I receive any of that, right? And so what the Medsidy platform is, it's a unique way to provide, you access to that revenue and into that revenue stream, right? The idea is that every day you're being advertised to, whether you like it or not, right? And it's not consensual, right? You're not agreeing to receive the advertisement. It's not voluntary. They're finding sneaky ways to present that information to you, right?
Yep. Using marketing techniques and things, right?
Correct. And so what I'd like to do, and what we're hopeful to do with the Medsidy platform, is to really flip that and say, look, let's go ahead and agree. Let's get an explicit handshake with our providers and say, look, let's be upfront about this. People want your attention, right? And why don't, instead of, shying away from it, if there's a, legally compliant way for you to do it, why don't you participate in that revenue and go ahead and say, yeah, look, I'll expose myself to the ads. I'll agree to be exposed to them. And, in exchange for that, I receive monetary compensation, right?
So basically, Medsidy we would be the AdWords for this company. Basically, instead of paying Google, you would pay the doctor directly and a portion for the company.
Correct. And that's where we come up with Medsidy, because it's a conjunction of the word medical and subsidy, right? And the reason I call it a subsidy is because the subsidy is unearned, right? You just get it because you either own a farm or, you happen to be a citizen of this particular county, whatever whatever the reasoning is behind a subsidy. Traditionally, subsidies are given to you just for mere circumstance, right? You don't have to earn them, right? Like the farmers in Iowa who are paid not to plant corn, right? They're specifically paid not to do something. So it's an unearned source of revenue, right? And so that's where the conjunction comes from, because the idea here is quite simple. You agree to be exposed to it. It's a simple product. It, presents ads over your desktop while you're working, whether you're working within your point of care system or you're browsing Google or, whatever it is that you may be doing on your computer at that moment, right? But you as a provider are saying, look, I'll agree to share my information with you, the advertising community, and you can present me things. And, if they're of interest to me, then I'll maybe engage with them. And if not, you have an opportunity to create brand awareness with me here on my desktop, right? It's a very, I think, symbiotic, or has some very symbiotic potential. And it, like I said, it can empower physicians because they put money in their pocket for doing the same things they're doing today, right? You don't really, the workflow change is very insignificant. So let's say today you get to the office, you log onto your computer, you log into your point of care systems or your practice management tools, and you get to work, right? The difference tomorrow if you had Medsidy, you'd log into Medsidy first, and then you do those other things, right? And after you launch Medsidy, you have, sort of 1 inch less of your screen available to you to use for the screen, right? So you're giving up that space. You're surrendering that space in exchange for, like I said, this is what I'll call a Medsidy or subsidy. And again, that's kind of the basic premise. But our hope is really, again, we get those subsidies in there, and then we can start to, I think, especially once you have a number of providers on there, really start to look at things, other options or other opportunities that could be helpful to physicians and could, again, kind of put them back in the driver's seat. So, for example, from a compliance perspective, right, you have people, like you said, right, who are constantly reaching out to you to market to you, to give you stuff, right? And those folks, they might be willing to blur the line, right? But you're not. You obviously don't want to risk your license. You don't want to get yourself in any trouble. So, like, I had encounters out in the field where I was specifically told, hey, don't bring anything, right? It's like, hey, I just want to bring you guys some coffee, right? The statute allows for it. It's a de minimis value, right? It's 4 cups of coffee. It's not anything that's, going to violate the statute under the anti-kickback or anything like that. In our particular product, we were giving away. So there's certainly, created a lot of shield for the anti-kickback. But my point being is that those institutions, rather than even kind of trek down that road, they just said, blanket policy, no, you can't do that.
Yeah,
Right.
that's what they do to make it easier.
Right. And so through our platform, I think we can actually provide avenues and channels to where you can, more compliantly accept maybe some of those gifts. So take, for example, over time, we have a number of podiatrists on the platform. Okay. And those podiatrists, and suddenly, there's a number of companies that are very interested in reaching those podiatrists. Right. And rather than say, hey, look, you can send your reps in, or you can do this or that. Hey, what if we set this up so that it's a Zoom meeting, and it's recorded, and yeah, you can get a free meal and a bottle of wine out of it, but it's going to come through us and it's going to be tracked and managed so that if anybody ever says, hey, what'd you get for, listening to that? Did you receive an illegal compensation or anything like that? They know that, no, I didn't. It's all being tracked through this platform because I give them my attention, right? I go to this platform when I'm looking for maybe educational products or things of that nature, because I know that they're going to provide it to me in a legally compliant way. And, maybe it's a DoorDash order, right? And you get a DoorDash credit to ensure that it's a de minimis, meal rather than a meal at Ruth Chris Steakhouse, right? Where you could consider influence. So things of that nature and opportunities like that as we advance the platform, right? Because I do think one of my things that I've seen also in the industry that is hugely concerning from a legal perspective is that providers, in my opinion, are left with very little resources to protect them from a compliance perspective. They have to go out and seek legal counsel and hope that that legal counsel is adequate, right? And that's another issue, right? It's in that market, you don't necessarily know what you're buying, and some providers may think, oh, a lawyer's a lawyer, I have a friend of mine who became a lawyer, maybe I'll rely on him, and things of that nature. And so they don't, in my opinion today, the compliance side of things is a very tricky and delicate market because it's getting harder and harder. There's more and more regulations, and there's not a lot there that's being, provided to protect you guys, right? From stepping into waters that, maybe you shouldn't. And so, like I said, for me, some of those compliance components and trying to ensure that we do things and make avenues available to you as a provider in a compliant way is really important too, right? Because it's a really easy way to get in trouble and, do something that, hey, wait, I thought, my lawyer told me that was okay, and this accountant said that was okay, but what do you really know, right? I mean, if you have a really great counsel, great. You might have, actual good advice and be okay, right? But for some providers, that may not always be the case.
So let's say, I don't know if it exists yet, but what would be the process? You get a little link, you download it, it would add to your browser in Chrome, and you would just log in there every day and your credentials, and you would get compensated per hour for it, or how does that work?
Yeah, so for the Medsidy platform, I mean, it's a login, and then it takes over that bottom inch of your screen. So if you could just imagine, right, the bottom inch of my screen just, gone, and now it has ads on it. Well, in that space, we also have some free space to add functionality, potentially over the future, like I said, to add some of these compliance components. This is this platform. I mean, we are days away from launch. I'm waiting right now. There's test ads running. We have customers who are signed up, a couple group of orthopedics or orthopedic surgeons, and then a few ENT doctors that are already, they're just pending, hey, when's the product going to be available? Because this is, this product, like I said, this is an idea that was recent, came, and so we've been evolving it, but this is where it stemmed from. So again, like I said, you would log in, it would take over that bottom inch of the screen, and then you'd be presented with ads down there, and they rotate throughout the day.
Yeah, it's the old-fashioned banner ads that we used to have on our, but they used to be, it's the old-fashioned banner ads. That's cool. What happens if, like, I'm just thinking about, like, I use 6 computers during a day. Do I have to log into each one of those 6 computers, or is it my main station?
It's really up to you, right? If you're using 6 computers a day, at different times, then you would have to log in because it's cloud-based, right? You'd have to log into each computer each
One of
time.
them.
Yeah, and now, when you say you work at 6, I'm assuming you go through to 6 different actual computers throughout.
Yeah, so six treatment rooms, 7. So because I'm here and I have 6 treatment rooms, so I'm going around and logging into each one. And so I use this. This is a cool thing you might like. It's called Gatekeeper. So it logs me in automatically. So I go in, hit enter, it logs me into my EMR. I do my note, or a scribe will do it, and then I'll go to the next room, next room, next room. That's kind of how we do it. And then I come back to this only like for now when I'm at lunch.
I got you. Okay. And so that is certainly something, I mean, some things that we could look at, are, further integrations with some tools that you might have, right? But out of the box, the idea is you would
Just log into Google Chrome, that website, and it logs you in. And
Yep,
that's
exactly.
cool. And so basically we're finishing up here. So people might be interested in learning more. I know you haven't launched yet, but kind of future dating this. Is there a good website that people could go to learn more about this?
Absolutely. So Medsidy.com, and that's MEDSIDY.com. They can also reach me. I'll go ahead and provide my cell, 214-493-3430, or one of our other sales representatives, Mike Baker, and actually hold on a second, pull up his number before I get it wrong.
I'll put it at the bottom. I'll put it in the show notes so people can look it up. That's fine. I'll put Mike's information down there.
Okay, so you have it.
Yeah, I'll add it. Well, and cool. Well, thank you. I think thinking as like an entrepreneur, I like the idea because this whole thing like with DuckDuckGo is like protecting us now, and a lot of these things now are trying to protect us from being followed, but by giving consent to doing it. And if I guess the main question I have, and I know it's too soon, but like, what is the juice worth the squeeze? I'm a non-notification guy. I turn every notification off. I unsubscribe from every single thing. So like, if you're paying me $10 an hour to do that, it's not worth it. But if it's substantially more, then it might be more worth it. You know what I'm saying? I'm just thinking the conversation in my head. So.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And the subsidies, I mean, they're going to vary based on the total number of providers, because it is spread across the entire network, right? As more providers get on there, the idea is to aggregate, these dollars and spread them across all providers. And so it's it's not maybe gonna reach a level of quite $10. Man, well, I'm trying to think of the numbers in my head. I'm running the numbers, because I have it per minute in my head. So yeah, I mean, the number may not be quite that high, but I think as something to think about, as I've heard recently, as shavings make a pile, right? And you put this on several monitors, you get this kind of running every day, and suddenly, a few $100s starts to add up. To subsidize potentially, a new piece of equipment, or, anything.
I like the idea. It's very, very good idea. So cool. Well, thank you, Ray. I appreciate you explaining this idea. I think it's ingenuity. I've never thought of it. So it's a great idea.
Well, no, I appreciate that. And thank you for the time. I really appreciate being on here, and I had really enjoyed meeting you today. So thank you very much.